Everybody is worried. Should I buy a house? Should I wait? What's going to happen? Is Powell going to lower the rates today? Quarter of a point, a half a point? What's going to be happening? What can you tell us?
Well, he should lower them more than a half a point. He should lower them 200 or 300 basis points. The issue with the Federal Reserve,
200 or 300 basis points.
Yes, my view. So, and I think the president has said too, they're way too high. But here's the problem that I see, Patrick, is you have a guy that President Trump put in this position, and he's running the Fed into the ground. He has just completely destroyed the integrity of the Fed. I'll give you an example. I criminally referred Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve governor, for mortgage fraud. There's credible mortgage fraud, I believe, that she's committed. In a normal environment, if he didn't hate the president, he would have already have launched an investigation into Lisa Cook. He already would have potentially said to her, hey, look, Lisa, it's time that you step down. Now you have a situation where Lisa Cook and the president are going to be going at each other in the Supreme Court, where the president has the right, in my view, to fire her. He did fire her. And so you have this just lack of leadership at the Fed. So, we're doing everything we can at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but these interest rates have got to come down. We got to get a new Fed chair. I think the president will pick a great new Fed chair, but they got to come down big time. Okay, so let me read this story for you. U.S. homeownership dips in 2025 for the first time in nearly a decade. And here's why. This is a New York Post story. The number of U.S. homeowners fell in 2025, first time in nearly a decade. The figure has dropped, according to a realty company, Redfin. About 86.19 million Americans belong to a picket fence crowd as of April 1st, down 0.1% to from 86.28, who own homes at the same time 2024. The United States last saw a drop of home ownership in the second quarter of 2016, nearly 10 years ago, from 74.36 to 74.4. In April, the number 1.1%. Inflation, high interest rate mortgage rates, and skyrocketing real estate prices have priced a lot of people out of the housing market. Redfin's head of economic research, Chen Zhao, told the Post the key metric had steadily increased each year since then, climbing to 75.41 in 2017, 78.1 in 2018, and so on until now. Over a decade of low mortgage rates since the 2008 financial crisis had helped people buy homes until recently, explained Chen Zhao, Redfin's head of economic research. That's a lot of sudden changes in 2022. What do you say to somebody that's sitting there wanting to buy a house? Should I go in and buy a house? Wait, what should I do? I think buying a house is always going to work out in the long term because it's an inflation-protected asset in many ways. However, I would say this. We are hitting it from every angle. So we're not just blaming Powell because he is to blame and he deserves the blame, but also at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Patrick, we just allowed rent to be counted towards your mortgage. So if you have been paying your rent the last 10 years, that should count towards your mortgage. It never was beforehand. We got rid of the FICO monopoly, the FICO score monopoly. We're allowing cryptocurrency to count towards collateral as towards your mortgage. So we're hitting it from every angle. I do think, though, if people are going to buy a house right now, the best thing to do is to make sure that even if there was a housing crash, which I don't think under President Trump that will ever happen, I think under other presidents like Biden it could have happened, frankly. I think in many ways it did because look at how bad the housing market is, and we're trying to turn it around. But if you buy in the right location and you buy something that is a good asset, that's located well, can survive a crash, I think you'll do great long term.
So this is a good transition for me to go to, Brandon. Your family, your grandfather, right? William J. Pulte.
Yes.
Built a Pulte Group. God bless his soul. He's no longer with us. 14 kids, massive company, $25 billion company. He was in the building business for many years, from 18 years old, building a house for himself, and I think he built a house for his parents. The second home he built was for his parents, and then he built a Fortune 500 company, one of the most powerful builders. At one point, I think his company was number one in that space.
That's right.
So on the building side,
we're going to get that going again.
Yeah, on the building side, the question I want to ask is, Brandon, who just turned 30 years old, right? Mm-hmm. Wanting to come up buying a house, you and I will have the conversation, and we'll talk about the price of lumber, price of
concrete.
Go ahead, your question. That
everything like sheetrock, concrete, lumber, windows, all of that stuff is up and up. We always talk about how it's seems that's not profitable to build houses, and it's like a national crisis that it is unprofitable to build houses, and there's a giant shortage in it. So that's something that concerns me a little bit with rates going down. I understand that inflation's low, so there's a lot of good reasons to bring rates down. But remember when COVID happened, we brought rates down, and the average house price went from like $378 to $500 in just 3 years. So, I'm concerned about prices going up like that again with this shortage in housing. So, what do you say about that?
Well, I would say that the builders sit on a lot of land. They sit on over 2 million lots, by what we can tell. And at the president's
Builders sit on 2 million lots?
Yeah, 2 million empty lots. Yeah, yeah. That's the dirty secret. And look, I love Pulte, I love D.R. Horton, I love Lennar, I love all the big home builders. But we've been meeting with them recently. We've had some really good talks, I would say. Me and others in the administration, and I'm very confident we're going to get them building. But look, they may need to bring their prices down. They may also need to figure out how to make monthly payments only for people who are qualified, but make it more affordable for people to buy homes. So this really is all hands on deck. And the builders are sitting on 2 million lots, Patrick. So they got to get going.
But you look
now they'll say, oh well, it's not entitled and there's not sewers in it. Well, then get putting the sewers in them, okay, guys?
How do you do that though? How do you motivate them? Because price of concrete's gone up 150% since
we
2010.
We can motivate them. We're trying to do it in a constructive way. I'll say this: the top 2 home builder in the country, we give at Fannie Mae alone year to date $8 billion in liquidity to. So
I got it.
Yeah. So, we want to be constructive, but at the same time, people have to step up and do the right thing by the American consumer. They can't be like the oil cartel where they collude with each other, keep the prices high, and then gentlemen like this guy can't buy a home.
But then the other part for me is the following: incentive. Okay, so the incentive part. Rob, can you pull up a data? The number of 2-bedroom homes we build versus 3-bedroom homes versus 4-bedroom homes.
I just sent it you the 1,400 square foot one.
Rob, if you can pull that up. So if you look at the number of 4-bedroom homes skyrocketing, okay, versus the number of 3-bedroom homes versus the number of 2-bedroom condos, starter homes, builders are sitting there saying, why would I get into building smaller homes? There's no money in it. I mean, if you look at this 1970s, look how many homes we're building per year that are 14,000 square feet or less. 500,000 per year. And then we go to 400,000 of them in the 80s. Then we go into the 300,000 in the 90s, then 200,000, and then today, less than 100,000 homes being built every year. That's less than 1,400 square feet. If I'm a 25-year-old, where back in the days, somebody wanted to buy a home, it took 2.5 times average salary to be able to buy a house. Right now, in some years, it's 5.5 to 8.5. So what incentive do you give builders to say, guys, we got to go build some 1,400 square foot homes, not these 2,800 4-bedroom homes? What can we do to incentivize builders?
Well, I don't want to just pick on the builders, but I will say they do need to look at the margins. And one of the companies that's done this is Lennar. They've built smaller floor plans. They are not just saying, oh, we need all these high margins and we need to make a lot of money. Look, I'm all for these companies making money. This is America. But at the end of the day, the builders, Patrick, when I was a kid at Pulte Homes, and, I eventually went and worked there on the board, but when I was a kid, it was less than 10% of the market was the big builders. Now, Patrick, it's almost 60% of the market. So a lot of people say, wow, these builders, they almost have like a monopoly on the market.
From what year to what year?
From probably 2007 till today, they've gone up from 10% market share to about 60% of the market.
Oh, my God.
So, you think about them, they're like the automakers these days. And so if they set the price, but see, it's even worse than the automakers because they control the land. Right. And again, I don't want to pick on the builders. There's a lot of different angles that we have to go at from here, but we got to get it down. Biden destroyed the housing market, and that's not just, I know it sounds like a crazy political point, but he did. With this inflation that went up and rates went up as fast as it did, it scared the hell out of everybody. They didn't build supply. They kept margins high, and we got our work cut out for us.
Tom, what are you thinking about this?
Well, I also see a local angle to it. Right, and local permitting and local approvals. We just saw it after the LA fires. Local municipalities, and I'd love to see the administration, kind of lead and drive, like council of governors or whatever is necessary to say, look, your states are making it hard to build homes. You have a lot of environmental regulations. You've got permitting that takes forever. Just look at the rebuild they're trying to do in Pacific Palisades. I know that's a wealthy neighborhood, but homes were there in an area that had, decades of just neighborhood existence. It's not new. No one's trying to do it new. And just to rebuild the homes, you've got insurance carriers holding checks, ready to start the rebuild, and there are sufficient resources to rebuild, yet the permitting process in Los Angeles is taking forever.
It's totally crazy.
And so I'd love to see the administration work with the governors and say, hey, get your state in order and let the building happen faster. So I think the builders, I don't want to pick on builders either, but they need to scream loud and ask for the governors and the administration to put pressure on the permitting process.
I agree, and they need to be not afraid to ask for help or to call people out. The builders have been traditionally not willing to call out people, thinking that it won't lead to anything. Well, nobody's going to get homes built if they don't speak up.
Well, they want to be neutral.
I understand, but how can you be neutral when you have people who have all of the permitting ready to go, Palisades is ready to be built, but California and Newsom aren't making it happen? They got to make it happen.
How do you accelerate that, though? Because part of it is, so the one part where, we want to build something here. Okay, the construction guy will come in. He'll say, well, it's going to cost you $600,000. Great. How soon can you build it? It'll take me 6 weeks to build it, but I can't control the permitting process. Got it. What can we do to accelerate the permitting process? Well, you're dealing with XYZ city laws, and so you're going to have to probably wait. What if we go pay somebody? Well, that would be the other thing that you have to do. That's that part. But what can we, the White House, and then the individual, what can we do to accelerate some of these states to move their permitting and the regulatory process faster? And how can we incentivize builders? This is the chart I was talking about earlier, by the way. In 73, we were building 70% of homes that were being built were 3-bedroom homes. Then it drops all the way down to 43%. Back then, only 20% of homes were 4-bedroom homes. Now it's at 48%, and 2 bedrooms have been around the same number, 10 or 9%. That's not moved. But the 3-bedroom starter homes has dropped nearly 30%, 25% of homes. How can we incentivize both the builders as well as deregulate from the federal side?
Well, the issue is that at some level at the federal government, you kind of want to stay out of the way. And so it is very much a local question. However, I do think we are looking at some different ways, both at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, to make sure that the municipalities are being competitive. And I would tell you this too. We recently held a meeting, me, Scott Turner, the Secretary of HUD, Kevin Hassett, the Secretary of Treasury Bessent, and many others, Kevin Hassett of the NEC, and looking at all types of different ideas on housing. Looking at, is there a way that we could incentivize with federal funds or otherwise some of these municipalities to get going? The good news is, Patrick, I do think that in 2026, this is going to be a huge issue, both in terms of the election, but I also think that the House and the Senate, they're telling me, and this is what I don't understand in some of these Democrats who didn't vote for me because I'm just a housing guy, is they sat there and they said, oh, we're going to vote for you and everything. They didn't end up voting for me. But they said in the same meetings, in the confirmation hearings, they'd say, well, housing is the number one issue amongst my constituency. So I think there's enormous momentum going into 26, and I think you're going to see some meaningful announcements out of us in the coming months.
I look forward to it. We're going to ask something.
Yeah, well,
real action.
Is it overhyped, the impact that corporations are having on buying up these small houses, or is that something that's actually problematic? 'Cause I've heard a lot of rumblings about that. Like, I don't know if it's just BlackRock or private equity companies or just corporations that are looking for a good yield that are buying up rental properties at like over asking price. Have you heard about that? Are you concerned about that at all?
There's definitely something to that. Now, one thing I want to say is that in addition to what we're doing, right, with the rent being counted towards mortgages, crypto being counted towards mortgages, credit scores, credit bureaus, trying to bring down title insurance costs, all of these things. You know, the number one thing, though, that has driven, in my view, in addition to Biden's reckless policies, this housing problem has been mass immigration that he let in, illegal immigration, letting in 20 million people. What does that do to our housing supply? I mean, think about that. If we build, the big builders will build, I don't know, quite a bit of homes this year, just shy of 1 million. Okay. Do you know how many years that would take to make up for all of these illegal immigrants that came in under Biden? It's significant. And it's the number one thing that, obviously the media doesn't want to report on. But when they talk about the housing shortage, they need to talk about how many illegals they let in during the Biden term. I mean, because it has an upward effect, right? It pushes rents up and then it just goes right up the food chain of housing.
Were you going to say something?
Well, yeah. And then what happens is private equity looks around and says, hey, wait a minute. Some of these people are going to get rent subsidies from the Democrats. Hey, why don't we just buy up the houses and then we'll get the subsidies? So in a way,
then what happens to the price of land?
Exactly. Now you've got artificial bidders being fueled. It's the same thing that happens to tuitions, Pat. Tuitions were driven up by student loans because students could go get loans regardless of what the tuition is, regardless if it went up, and the federal government will say, oh, no problem, you qualify, no problem, you qualify, and then they dumped it on all the processors. And then you had these students that had these giant student loans that they went in eyes open, but the cost was up. Well, now you've got all these people come in. They're going to get rent subsidies from the government. I'm BlackRock. You're Citadel. We say, why don't we buy a bunch of them because we're guaranteed the rent? Oh, I got an idea. We'll do Section 8 and we'll just put all these people in there. So now you can't find a condo to start with because you've got too much demand that's artificial. That's the government is almost like paying student loans to immigrants to have a place to stay. It's artificial. And and guess what? Now the land goes up, everything goes up.
Guys in the housing business would tell me for the last few years that was the Biden trade. So you'd buy this land, you'd buy these homes, you'd buy these rentals, and then you'd hope that, and this is not me, but I'm saying this is other housing guys saying that then they'd let in more people and then it would just go up with price. And that's exactly what happened.
And then they all scream and then they get more subsidies.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, to me, when you hear the younger generation, as they're coming up, they're sitting there saying, I want to find a way to buy a property. Do I just sit this one out? Do I just say, the idea of owning a house early on, forget about it. Just go do other things. And then these other guys are targeting renters. So maybe they don't want me to buy a house. Maybe this is not a market for me to buy a house. I can't afford it in the first place. What do I do? It's not like my income is skyrocketing. It's not like the median income is skyrocketing. So to me, the issue becomes, how do you win over the youth that is wanting to pursue the American dream? Hence, we marketed it for many years. That's homeownership. They're sitting this out and they're saying, I don't know if it's part of me. So I think if somebody in a marketplace thinks about how to win them over, how to address that issue in whatever way, prices are going up. So how even the builders are sitting there saying, well, don't make me the bad guy. I want to be able to build. There's no incentive for it. Why would I build it? I don't run a nonprofit. So I don't think builders can do it by themselves. I do think they need help from incentives to be able to get them to say, whoever goes out there building more 3-bedroom starter homes at this, I don't know. I don't know how you do that, but I do think there's a massive market for it. Economically, I'm sure there's a lot of different people that would want to have a blue ocean in doing that, but they can't do without the help of some kind of benefits from the top.
Yeah, and I think you'll see us unveil that. Right now, we're just trying to work in a constructive way with the builders and say, hey, how can we make this a win-win? But we do have a lot of wherewithal to effectuate change, and hopefully we'll be announcing that in the coming months.
We'll look forward to it. 2026 is around the corner. I am convinced this is going to be a very, very special year. In my opinion, I think we got this other rate cut that's coming. I think we're going to have 3 more in 2026, give or take, based on what Goldman Sachs and a lot of other people are saying. We may even experience a new person that's running the Fed by June-ish, I think June 26-ish, around that time, that could turn things around the second half of the year. If the China-U.S. trade deal gets done, it could be an unbelievable day for the stock market. However, all of that stuff going into 2026, what that means to you is nothing if you're not prepared for it going into 2026 with momentum. So having said that, if you don't yet have a plan to write out a great business plan for yourself, your family, your executives, your employees, watch this video, Rob, if you have. This is a video we shot of me going into a car, driving a car that goes 1.9 seconds, 0 to 60, and I also borrowed Vinny's old car to see, what was it, Rob? Was it a Prius? We're testing to see the difference between a Prius on 0 to 60 and then versus the Tesla Plaid. The owner was freaking out saying, I don't know if you can handle it or not. I said, I've been driving fast cars for a very long time, but I want you to watch this video. Rob, what speed do you have it on?
Just one.
Okay.
Regular.
Watch this video, folks. Speed matters when it comes down to business. Go ahead, Rob. How fast you grow your business matters. Behind me, I have a 2019 Toyota Corolla, and I have a Model S Tesla Plaid. You're going to see how fast it goes. It's absolutely insane. 1, 2, 3. This is Vinny's car. Still have
dominated. Come on, Corolla. 10 seconds. Oh my gosh. Still got from A to B, but it's super slow. Any of these companies that eventually dominate their competitors, their edge isn't always just product, it's speed. This took way too long to go from 0 to 60. Here we go. Now we're in the Plaid. Let's see how this does. 0 to 60. Holy shit. Oh my God, that was amazing. So notice the difference. 0 to 60 in the Corolla, 9-10 seconds. This was less than 2 seconds.
So at this point, we know speed is critical in business. The question becomes, with 2026 around the corner, it'll be here in no time. How prepared are you going to be versus all your competitors? Once a year, I host an event called the Business Planning Workshop, where we cover the 12 building blocks on how to write a proper business plan that drives emotion and logic. If you've never attended it, do whatever you can for you, your wife, your team to tune in together. It's the only one we do that's through a webinar, which means anybody from anywhere around the world can tune into the Business Planning Workshop. It's December 12th. We start first thing in the morning. We go till very, very late. If you haven't registered yet, click on a link below to get registered. I cannot wait to see you there. All right, there you go, Rob. Let's put the link below. For some of you guys that are only listening to the audio, go to bpw.beddavidconsulting.com. Again, bpw.beddavidconsulting.com, or the link below. Get registered. We'll spend a day together on December 12th and make that the beginning of the greatest years of your life in 2026. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.